more research on it to see if I can get it.
Okay. Recording back. So leveraging on the stuffs the things you need. Let me get to Bootstrap. So what is Bootstrap? Like I said, as a developer or as a programmer or as a tech person, the reason why you're in tech is to actually create or make use of things that will make your life and your work easier. So the same way in development, you leverage on tools that will make your life or whatever it is you're trying to do easier. And one of those things is Bootstrap. Like in developing websites, make use of Bootstrap. Now, like as I was explaining, I said, imagine you trying to recreate this navigation here. It will take you lots of time and maybe, depending on the type of navigation you want to create, it will take you lots of lines of code and a lot of texting and removing and editing, researching and all that. Because of course, surely you must research, you must ask questions, you must Google, because you're not expected to know everything at once. So what Bootstrap is look at this. Say Bootstrap is the most popular and powerful front-end HTML, CSS, and JavaScript framework for faster and easier responsive web development. What does this do? What is it that Bootstrap does that, okay, we said is a powerful tool that is used in web development? Let me create a file here. Call it boot.php. Oh, boot.html, sorry. Okay, let me close all of these ones. Let me get my starter template. Let me say this one is intro to Bootstrap. Okay. Let's say H1. Now, let me create a button here. Let me call it submit. Okay. Let me open it in the browser. Okay, here it is. So look at this file. Just look at the button. Okay. So let's say I want to style this button. What do we do? Okay, let me create a CSS file. Link CSS. Let me call it boot.css. Let me create the file here. Boot.css. Now, what I want to style is this button, so I will target the button, or maybe let me give it a class. So that's maybe if I have my button, let me say my bot. How do we select using classes? We use dot with the name of the class, if you can recall. So now, look at this button. I want to increase the padding, that is the space inside. So let me say 5 pixels. Background color. Let me say I want background color to be red. Then the color of the text, which is that button there, I want it to be white. And let me use hexadecimal color. Okay, let me refresh and see how it looks like now. Okay, so another thing is, okay, I want to remove this border. This border is black. Okay, so let's say that border. I want it to be solid. I want it to be 1 pixel solid red as well. So you won't see that black line. And let's say I want to increase the width. The width of the button. Let's see. Oh. There's 50. Let's refresh. If 50 is still not enough. Let's say 150. So you see how I'm styling this? I do stuff, I refresh and check, it's not good. I go back and try another thing. So, okay. This 150, let's say 120 pixel. Okay, good. Let's say the edge is too sharp. Let's actually bend it a little, border radius. Let's say 5 pixel. Good. So let's say the text inside, the font. Let's make it font width. Let's make it bolder. Let's refresh. Good. So look at all this stress. Okay, let's what else? Height. Let me add the height. Let's say 50 pixel. Let's refresh and check. Oh, 50 pixel is too much. Let's say 30 pixel. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Or rather 35 pixel. Okay, good. So you see the time it took me to actually style this. Okay, let me even increase the font of this submit button. The font size. Let's say 25 or 30 pixel. Don't know. Let's refresh. Oh, it's too big. Let's say 15. Okay. 18 pixel. Yeah, 18 pixels, okay. So now look at the time it took me to actually style this button. Look at the time it actually took me to style this button. Now, what is it that Bootstrap offers that we said, okay, it makes development easier? Button is a common stuff when building websites. Of course, you see buttons, whether it's in a form or in a different format, you see those reusable components like navigation bar, different sections. You find them, these things that you know that is common when building a website. Bootstrap provides them for you. In the sense that if I want to recreate this button using Bootstrap, see what I'm going to do. I come here, I call button. I'll call it submit. Now, I have a class, Bootstrap class called btn danger. Now you see where this stuff is coming from. Let me refresh. Let me add line break here. Good. So you see that this stuff is still like this. It's still this way. But I'm using a bootstrap class. Now, how do we connect to bootstrap? It's just like what bootstrap does is this. You see the way I style this button. Now, let's say I've created something and I have this button style like this, and I'm creating another stuff. I'm building another form or another page, or maybe a different project. And then I want to use this same button. Look at the time it took me to actually style that button, all these lines of code, blah, 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 blah. Now, there are scenarios that are even more than this. This one is even small. So what do? I want to make this thing reusable. So one way of doing that, which is what Bootstrap does, is I will push this my styling, and make it available via a CDL link, or maybe in a way that you will download this my boot.css where I have this style, and then link it to your own CSS file. So that when you attach this class, remember I used this class .mybot. Once you attach a class name called mybot, automatically it will inherit that style. Or it's just like, okay, let me come after this side. Let me come here and, okay, instead of this class here, let me add this, let me rename this to my bot. See what will happen. I just added the class name. You see that this has inherited that style because I added that class name. And why is it inheriting? Because I have linked the CSS, the CSS file to this page. Now, I want to use Bootstrap. I want to use Bootstrap's own styling. There are two ways. The same way you link, I linked my CSS here. I can link CSS Bootstrap. But there are two ways I can link it. First one is either you download it. Let's go to Bootstrap. Let me open Bootstrap 5.2 because that's the latest. Oh, sorry, this is Student Republic. There's Bootstrap. Yeah. Let's open 5.2. Okay. So it's either we download. Okay, let's go to this download page. We download the source. Or another way we can do it is to link using CDL link. So which the one I will use now for now in this class is CDL link. So if you go to Introduction to CSS Bootstrap, if you scroll down a little, scroll down, you see CDL links. It provides you with two links, the CSS and the JavaScript. Now, when we start dealing with navigation, I will tell you why we have this JavaScript. Because Bootstrap comes with a bundle of both CSS, JavaScript, and HTML codes. So I will simply copy this CSS. Inside this source, the href, I'll paste the link. Now, if you note, for my own custom CSS, I linked it to the file itself. But this one, I'm not downloading Bootstrap. It's when you download Bootstrap that I can now link this via the file. But since I'm not downloading, this is one of the ways you can link to Bootstrap CSS by copying the link. The same way you link your normal CSS by typing link, selecting CSS. Then all you have to do is just to remove the style of CSS inside and paste the link. That's all. Now I have to link the second one. Okay, before, let me not link it yet. We'll come to that. So I've linked this. Let me go and refresh. Remember this, let me comment this out and then refresh for you guys to see something. Let's refresh this. You see how this button is? Now let me comment out this bootstrap link. Let's refresh. You see this? Where is this one coming from? This is coming from this styling. This one is coming from Bootstrap. This particular styling is coming from Bootstrap. How? Where? Let's go to Bootstrap. Search buttons. Look at it. Buttons. So Bootstrap, this button is a reusable stuff. So now, instead of me to maybe, if I want to style a button, instead of me to waste my time doing all this long styling stuff, all I need to do is just to go to Bootstrap. Once I've linked my Bootstrap, copy any of them. If you want your button to be green, just look for, then the class name is BTN Success. So I'll just come here, copy this one. Sorry. Let me add line break here. Line break here. And paste. Let's refresh. See this one. Now, the same thing with navigation. This is our navigation that we are creating in the other files. Look at our test.css. Look at the time it took us to actually start styling and the navigation. If I need the navigation in Bootstrap, what do I do? Just come here. Everything is all about knowing the components you need. Come here and say nav bar, because that's what I want to create. Of course, your site begins with nav bar. Let's see. Now it has many. Look at, you'll be seeing the samples. Look at this one. This one now has that search bar. If you want to remove it, you can remove it. You scroll down. Look at these ones. This one is just the name of, maybe the name of the website with nothing on the nav. Can add stuff. The one with logo. Look at this one. This one doesn't have a search bar. Scroll down again. Look at this one. This one has drop-down link. See different navigation bars. So look at these ones. Now, what do I do if I want to create a nav bar? Just come here and select the one that is closer to what you want to do. Let's say I want to create a nav bar that has a search bar, just like this one. But then it shouldn't have a drop down. I will remove the drop down. What do I do? If I come here, you copy the code. Let me create a file called root nav. That is bootstrap navbar.html. If I paste, I will populate my normal code. Let's say web boot. Inside the body, I paste. Now, let me refresh this page so you see what will happen. Open it in the browser. You see, nothing happened. There's no styling, nothing. Why? If you go to this code, all these things are Bootstrap classes, like all this class. Bootstrap have styled it, like the same way we style using class name. We come here, we select the class name .mybot. Bootstrap have already styled this using the class names. Like it has styled this .navbar, it has styled this navbar expand LG. These are names of classes. It has styled it. It has styled this, but there's no way for this web page now to actually take up that style. Remember, when you style something without actually linking that CSS file, it's not going to work. So what do? We actually need to link the CSS. And this CSS should be coming from Bootstrap. So since we have not downloaded it, we can just go and copy the CDN link. So I'll simply copy it from here. Come here and paste it. And refresh. See my navbar. If I'm actually building a website now, I've started. Now, do you know how many lines of code or how many research, or maybe how many hours or how many minutes, depending on your level of expertise, is going to take you to actually create something like this? So what Bootstrap does is extracts those unnecessary time and unnecessary efforts that you need, because this is a common reusable component. Of course, most websites have their navigation bars. So just select the one that is closer to what you want to achieve and leverage on it. You can now, it's now easier for you to actually change the text of this, start restyling it according to the way you want it to look like. No, let me go back to Bootstrap. Now, okay, someone might ask, okay, if we can actually create, start building with Bootstrap, what then do we need the knowledge of HTML and CSS for? You need that knowledge, that basic understanding, that fundamental, foundational knowledge, because you can't actually make use of Bootstrap without actually knowing the basics of HTML and CSS. Now, if you don't know what CSS is, if you not start the basic CSS, you will know what these classes are called. And you do know that, okay, these classes are actually attributes. Remember what I said? Attributes are things that you add after the opening tag. So this class is an attribute. And I mentioned something that the classes are just used to maybe class things that you want to style. You want these things to have a certain style. You target the class and use it to style it. So here, this is not a single class name. Take note. Anytime you see space, it means this navbar is a different class on its own. Then this one, navbar expand LG, is a different class on its own. Once the name is long, they use hyphen to join it together. You don't leave space. It's just like here, if I remove that hyphen now and leave space, it takes this navbar again as a different class, takes this expand LG as one class, then takes this PG light as another class. So take note of that. An element can have multiple classes inside it. Like this one now has multiple. It has 1, 2, and 3. It has 3 classes inside it. And these classes are styled by Bootstrap. And how did Bootstrap style it? Of course, they will do something like this. Because of that one is class navbar. They will come here and do something like this, navbar, and do the styling. The same thing, BG lights, BG dark, and do the styling. So that is why you need the basic understanding of CSS, knowing what, and HTML, knowing what all these things are. Now, div, I've talked about div. I said, although I said it briefly or very mild, I was like, div is kind of a divider. What does it do? It serves as a container that puts things together. So look at this div. It's just carrying stuff inside it. That's what div is all about, carrying stuff inside it. And they normally give it a class. Sometimes they give it a class of container fluid. This one is a class of container that's carrying everything inside here. Now, look at this anchor. This is a link itself. Remember how to create anchor tag? You just type A and populate with href. That's what you have here. The only difference is that they added a class called navbar brand, which they styled. If you go down, this is the button. This is a button with a class of navbar toggler type. All these things are Bootstrap classes. Bootstrap is all about classes and classes and classes. Why? Because those classes are what they used in styling the components they have. Is what they use in styling the components they have. So without the basic knowledge of HTML and CSS, you might not really understand Bootstrap. So that is why we always start from scratch, Bootstrap, the basics, and HTML, the basics. And that is why we also advise that there is no need for you to spend your whole day or your whole hours learning HTML and CSS. Why? Because there are tools that you leverage on. All you need to know is just to understand the basics. HTML is all about tags and elements, attributes. While Bootstrap, CSS, once you understand the use of classes, the class is used to style, ID is used to style, you are good to go, because once you are now using Bootstrap, you begin to understand some of these. You say, okay, this class, drop down item. Okay, they actually use this class to style this particular section, this particular line. That's what they use to style this. So you begin to understand some of these stuffs. Now, okay, what about, I have this now, I want to start customizing. Another thing you can do is to start knowing where some of these styles, which class is responsible for which. Now, this BG lights is responsible for the coloring of this. If I change it to BG dark, this place becomes dark. Let's try that. You see, BG dark. See, it's not dark. Let me remove the BG whatever entirely. Let's see what happens. See, I've removed it entirely. There's no background color here now. So, okay. Let's say I want to give it my own background color. What do? I can come here and add my own class. Let me call it Emma. Remember, look at my CSS. I've not linked my own CSS. So let me come here and link my own CSS. Let me call it emma.css. Let me create a file called emma.css. You don't want to understand the basics yet. Just try to understand what the flow. Don't jump into the main styling itself. Just understand the flow. I've added a class called Emma. Let me come here and target it and select it. It's a class, so I do .emma. I open it. Let's see background color. Let's use brown. Let's see what happens. You see, this is my own custom CSS. See what I did? I removed the class I knew that it was responsible for that coloring, the background color. And I added my own class name, targeted it, and styled it. So you see that the same way, that's BG lights. That was the same way they styled it. Okay, see what I'm going to do now? Control Z. Oh, sorry. Let's come here and do that BG light again. BG lights. Let's refresh here. Okay. Now the BG light is back. So let's try something. BG lights. Let's refresh. What will happen? You see, sometimes if you try to override their own styling, it's not going to work. Sometimes if you try to override their own class, it might not work. So the only thing I can do is even having their own here, it might affect your own. So even if I put back the Emma here and change back this to Emma, it might not work. Why? Because of the presence of their own. Or it might work because of the positioning, okay? It's preventing it from working. So what I can do is simple. Remove this their own. Go back and refresh. I have my own background color. Now, the test color. What about the test color? What about the test color? Okay, so I'll come here and say color white. Let's see. See, nothing is happening because their own classes also have that text color. So it's not going to work. I'll remove this. You can start going one after the other. Look at this navbar brand, which is this navbar brand. Let's remove this and see what happens to the navbar brand. Whoa, you see? That anchor, they actually styled it and there are lots of stuff there. So let's Ctrl Z. Let me call it my nav. Let me do something. Let's see if I can actually change the color. My nav dot my nav color. You see, white, it has changed. The color has changed. Why? What happened? Okay, before I explain what happened, see what I'm going to do. Where is that stuff again? Okay. Now I'm placing this my own class before their own. Okay, my own is taking precedence. But sometimes, take note of this now. Sometimes this is not the best practice. Why? Although it's working here, but in some cases, in some elements, it might not work. Why did I say so? It's always best to, if you check my CSS, although I made that mistake here, that I just left it, it's always best to place the bootstrap link first. Link your bootstrap first before your own CSS style. Remember what I said about the order of execution. It starts from top. So it reads this one, reads this one. So it will read bootstrap own first. And then because your own custom CSS will come last. Because after leveraging bootstrap, in the end, you are customizing based on what you have on your bootstrap. So like I changed the background color of this stuff using my own class name, Emma, here. That's why I'm placing this, my link, my own CSS last. Because sometimes if I place this before their own, it reads my own. And then coming down, their own might override my own. Although sometimes it might not be the case, but it's always good to follow the best practice. If you are linking, your own CSS file should come last. The same thing if you are styling, your own class. If you are giving class name, your own class should come last. So after their own class name, I can add my own, my nav, where I changed the color of this to white. Now, look at their own hover. Their own hover, I don't know the color of their own hover is. So let's say I want to change the hover effect. What do I do? See, do the same thing. If you recall how hover works, all I need to do is just to add column over here. And then let's say I want the color to be something yellowish. Let's see if it will override yours. You see, it has overridden their own. So we are leveraging on what they already have to create stuff, to build stuff. So Bootstrap provides you components. Then you leverage on it to build or create whatever it is you want to create. Now, I want to remove this drop down. As you can see, this drop down is not working here, but it's supposed to work. Why is it not working? Good. If you can recall, when I was linking, I said, I'm not going to link the Let me go back to